And we are not live.
Welcome to Set to Stun, a Burnett exclusive, a very special episode today. My name is Scotty R37, and Steve is in engineering with the news.
I am. No red shirt this time, though.
Well, you'll survive. This
I
is
will
good
survive,
news.
hopefully. Yeah, should we get right to the news, Scotty?
Yeah, let's. It's something that I would like to tear off like a Band-Aid because it concerns me.
Yeah, okay. So Star Trek legend Nichelle Nichols caught in ongoing conservatorship battle, report says.
Beloved Star Trek actress Nichelle Nichols is caught in the middle of a conservatorship battle as she fights her own battle with dementia. The actress, Nichelle Nichols, is currently in the middle of a three-way conservatorship battle. In the photo, I'm not sure. Do we have that photo?
I don't have it, Scotty. Sorry.
No. It's quite all right. You know what? And seeing Nichelle Nichols, I prefer young Nichelle Nichols, but I am concerned about her being able to overcome these adversities. For years, there's been a fight over the legal conservatorship of Nichols, who famously played Lieutenant Nyota Uhura in Star Trek, the original series, and many other iterations, and who here on planet Earth helped NASA to recruit more women and people of color to the agency's astronaut corps. Now, Nichols' only child, Kyle Johnson, her close friend and successor, Angelique Fawcett, and her former manager, Gilbert Bell, continue to fight over her conservatorship for control over assets, personal affairs, and more, the Los Angeles Times has reported. This battle comes as Nichols, 88, continues to grapple with dementia, in which she was first diagnosed in 2013. Oh, Nichelle also suffered a minor stroke 2 years later in 2015.
Yeah, this news really hits home for me. My mother is currently struggling with dementia, and right when the pandemic hit last year, we had to move her into a memory care facility, and it's rough. It's this kind of stuff that happens. This happened with Stan Lee too a bit.
Yeah.
When people die or when they're deemed incapacitated and they have to have their wards look over their estates and stuff like that. It always gets messy. When it comes to money and family and business relationships. I mean, it really does. It can get really messy, especially if you don't have clear-cut legal terms drawn up before these things happen. God, it just breaks my heart to hear this.
Well, and my grandmother suffered from Alzheimer's as well, and it was heartbreaking, and for no one, well, aside from herself, of course, but seeing the effects of it on my dad as well. I'm glad that these sort of legal battles weren't taken up into it, and seeing a loved one have to suffer from that sort of ailment is enough on anyone, but to involve legal proceedings as well, I can only understand, or I can't understand the frustrations that come with that aspect as well.
Now, to my knowledge, she lives with her son, Kyle Johnson, and their family. I believe in Phoenix, Arizona, or somewhere in Arizona. I believe the town is Phoenix. So it seems like it's their family against the friend, the longtime friend, and the business manager. Yeah, it's just weird because and it's hard with dementia because unless they had a pre-drawn up kind of will or a living will or contract, I don't understand the claim that Angelique Fawcett has, other than some kind of verbal "I'll take care of you" kind of thing. You're my best friend, and I'll take care of you, for the rest of your life, or who knows, what kind of arrangement that was. But the manager is kind of weird. Like, what's he interjecting for? He must feel like he has some percentage of earnings or future earnings as well. It's God, what a mess.
Well, my heart goes out to Nichelle Nichols, her family, and everyone who is helping her through this time. And I'm one of these people who doesn't like to look at the details of the legal ramifications. I just hope that the emotional support from family and friends is helping Nichelle Nichols through these very, very difficult times.
Yeah, me too. Like I said, it's heartbreaking news, but it is, unfortunately, it's news, and we thought we should cover it. But on to bigger and hopefully more cheerful things. We do have a list to run down. Scotty, what are we running down today?
Oh, I thought we would frustrate a bunch of people by talking about our favorite Star Trek television series. Now, we're only going to be covering the classic series, from the original series up until Enterprise, because I don't think that there is much point in discussing how much we are less than enthusiastic about Discovery or Picard.
So can I tell you, so they would be all the new shows, the Discovery, Picard, not Prodigy, but what's the other one?
Lower Decks.
Lower Decks. Those would automatically be at the bottom for me. So it was
in that order,
probably. So it would just seem kind of silly to put that on the list. Because they were I think probably they'd be at the bottom for you as well. Okay, so I think it just made sense to keep them off the list for now. How do we want to start just like we did the captains? We'll just start at number 5 and go back and forth.
Yeah, let's start at the bottom, I'll start at the bottom for me. I'm going to say that my number 5 spot is Star Trek Voyager, the Gilligan's Island of the Star Trek series.
Gilligan's Island. Well, I guess you can be considered the Gilligan's Island of the Star Trek universe.
Little bit. It lost to the Delta Quadrant within the first act of the first episode, and the battles of getting from the Delta Quadrant and home. I've mentioned before, I reevaluated Voyager, but it still stays fairly low on my list considering the company that it's in. I enjoy Captain Janeway. I found her a little reckless for my liking. I really enjoy the entire crew. Tuvok is probably one of my favorite, tactical officers, but characters. I enjoy B'Elanna Torres. Roxanne Dawson, never take off that forehead. You are an attractive woman wearing that prosthetic. 7 of 9.
And continue directing episodes of television. She's a great director, too.
Oh, absolutely. The stable of actors who transitioned into directors through Star Trek's history is incredible, like Robert McNeil Duncan. Yep. Robert Duncan McNeil?
Duncan McNeil.
In that, yes. So Paris. Or Locarno,
Paris.
whichever way you want to go.
Yeah.
Chakotay was a little bland for my liking. Neelix. I'm so sorry. Well, okay, sure. He's no Quark.
No, but he got a great send-off.
He did get a good send-off. And again, as it progressed and the crew of the Voyager get closer to the Alpha Quadrant, I liked how it incorporated that first contacting Starfleet, the elevation of Lieutenant Barclay in terms of not being such a milquetoast, if you will. The crew is, and 7 of 9, I enjoyed that exploration of a Borg regaining their humanity in a more prolonged way than we saw with Picard in Next Generation. But it was much more about the characters than it was, save a few storylines, than the series itself. I enjoyed Year of Hell. The moral quandaries of the Equinox were good, but I never found that it, even the Captain Proton to a certain extent. And it occurs to me just now that probably one of the things about Voyager and Catherine Janeway, I never really forgave her for stealing Sam away from Diane on Cheers.
Oh, well, there's that.
That's my hang up. Sure. Who's your number 5, Steve?
Number 5 is Star Trek, the original series.
Boo!
Yeah. Right. Like I said on our other show, I watched the original series, but it didn't captivate me like the Next Generation did. I said before that the Next Generation brought me into the fandom of Star Trek. I do appreciate the show. I think it's a good show. I think there are great episodes. I think there are some terrible episodes. But all in all, it's a solid. I mean, you can't not like the crew.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody, the main crew in the Star Trek series was awesome. So I do like the crew, but on out of the list of 5, it is my number 5.
Absolutely understandable. Then I guess we'll just shuffle along to my number 4, which is, well, it's been a long time getting from there to here. Enterprise, I really enjoyed upon a second viewing. The first time that I saw it, it would have been number 5, no questions asked, just because at that point in time, after The Phantom Menace had come out, I was not looking forward to a prequel series of Star Trek. I wanted to see them moving forward after Voyager.
Yeah.
And seeing the repercussions of the and ramifications of the Dominion War. And so that sort of prejudice and bias is something that I had when I watched it the first time. There were no transporters. They were developing all of the technologies that we had taken for granted since the 60s up until 2001. And to see that burgeoning pioneer spirit, I felt that I had seen, but on revisiting it, the clunky nuts and bolts of banging into the final frontier and figuring out which way humanity was going to spread its wings and incorporate the United Federation of Planets, its diplomacy, establishing the Prime Directive, and what exactly was humanity going to be doing as it ventured out into the stars. I was really intrigued with that. T'Pol is a great first officer, a great Vulcan first officer, and the conflict that she had there, especially with a full-blooded Vulcan and dealing with not necessarily being torn between two worlds by virtue of heritage, but just by philosophy and being ingratiated by the crew of the NX-01. Trip is an amazing engineer. Reed could be a little tiresome, but still quite good. And Dr. Phlox, Mayweather, Hoshi Sato, in terms of developing a lot of the linguistic gymnastics that the Federation would take for granted as well. And so I think that Enterprise was canceled too soon. Yes. They were just hitting their stride. And I would have loved to have seen subsequent seasons, but I am happy with what we did get.
So, my number 4 is Voyager.
Okay.
So Voyager, as much as I do like Voyager, I do like the other 3 more. But Voyager had, we kind of, you went over it and we went over it on a subsequent show, that I like the fact that they're out in the Delta Quadrant trying to get home. I do think they spent a little too long with the Kazon. In fact, it made me feel the way I felt about Deep Space Nine with the Dominion. I felt they did that, and it's funny because at the time I didn't like that. Upon rewatches of Deep Space Nine, it doesn't bother me at all. Weird how that how that change happens. But the Kazon still bothers me. I didn't think that whole the Seska thing, all of that, none of that sat well with me, anyways. So a lot of times I'll start the series on rewatches. I'll watch the first couple episodes of the first season and then skip to season 3. Not just cut that right out, but regardless. Voyager I still think it's a good show. They did a lot of experimental things, I think, with Voyager. The Captain Proton stuff, which sometimes worked, sometimes didn't for me. But they did a lot of cool, fun stuff in that show, kind of like the Next Generation did. Doing these, with the holodeck stuff and the Q stuff.
Yes.
So speaking of Q, that's one thing I did like about Voyager. They did explore Q a bit more. I happen to like Q a little bit more in Voyager, and especially the relationship that he had with Janeway, Q and Janeway, and then Janeway and Q's son, which I thought was interesting. But you can go on and on. I did, the 7 of 9 thing was really cool to see that that reintegration from Borg back into human. It's basically what we didn't get to see in a prolonged way with Picard. So we got that, which I really liked. I'll echo some of the stuff that you said, like bringing in Reg in that final year when they're coming home, that final season. I thought that was pretty well done. His elevation and that kind of thing. I did like the Neelix character probably more than you did. I thought Tuvok was probably one of the strongest characters. The Paris arc was really good too, and I think it's overlooked a lot because I think he's kind of looked at as the comic relief, kind of more as the comic relief of the show. But
Chandler in space,
right? But his arc from being basically an outcast in prison, basically, to an ensign and master pilot, to getting out of that rebellious youth stage, finding the love of his life, figuring out what that looks like, how that works, and how it works in this weird situation they're in, so far away from home. I thought his arc was one of the strongest arcs in the show.
Poor Harry Kim.
Yeah, poor Harry. But Harry saves everybody in the end. So.
It's true. You could promote him once in a while. Get him to a lieutenant.
You could. So that's my number 4. Number 4 is Voyager for me.
My number 3 is, I feel like I'm going to be disappointing people left, right, and center, but I'm going to say number 3 is Next Generation.
Whoa.
Yeah. And it is something I love. The Next Generation, it's neck and neck with my top 3. And it can change on a daily basis. Maybe I'll catch an episode that says, you know what, maybe I've been giving the other shows too much credit. But Next Generation,
like Drumhead.
Well, Drumhead is amazing. Even, if I want to watch a Star Trek The Next Generation movie, I just watch All Good Things. That is my favorite Next Generation movie. Yeah. And in response to what you're saying about liking Q more on Voyager, I found Q on Next Generation to be a viable threat.
Yeah.
And I did enjoy it. And the Borg were much more of a frightening force in the galaxy. I've seen all of the episodes of Next Generation multiple times. They are some of the best representations of television in my lifetime. There are obviously 2 other shows that I think are better on a day-to-day basis, but I absolutely was informed by that growing up in the 90s, the tolerance and the exploration and to a certain level moral certainty that Next Generation had. And it's comforting for me just to know that there was a time in television or a time in the 24th century where people did things because they were sure about them, and if they had any concerns about them, they discussed their problems and found a conclusion that was rational and in the best interests of everyone moving forward. And I really did enjoy that. And as I grew older, maybe a little bit more fight got mixed in with my Star Trek, and I liked it a bit more.
Yeah.
But Next Generation is my number 3.
Awesome. My number 3 is Enterprise. I like Enterprise. It's usually neck and neck with Voyager. They're the ones battling for 3 and 4 spot on my list. But I really do like, unlike I think most people, I was anxious for them to go back and show me what kind of what was the lead up to this United Federation of Planets? How did we get from there to here?
You know what I'm saying? You said the thing.
Right. It is a thing. How did we get there? I was anxious. And it's probably because I wasn't a huge, I wasn't a deep into the original series. Um, and I did. TNG was awesome. Deep Space Nine I liked. Voyager, but that was all forward. I'm like, and I didn't read any of the books yet. I hadn't read any of the books. I think I had read like one paperback that was still forward. It didn't go back in time, so I was ready for it. Now and then when we got it, I was jazzed. It is a clunky nuts and bolts stumbling through the galaxy trying to figure out what the hell's going on, right? And they make a ton of mistakes, which I liked. I thought that was good. That just because humans go out into space doesn't mean everything's going to be a-okay and we're going to go fix everybody. You know what I mean? Like, wait a minute. What we're doing here has consequences. And not just consequences because we might have to go to war with somebody, but consequences as a as a galactic community, right? Because everything affects, your relationships affect trade. It affects commerce and trade and negotiation and whether or not we're gonna, one planet's gonna go to war with another planet. So that kind of, and that's why I think I liked about the last season, which I think was going to be if they had the chance to do 2 more seasons or 3 more seasons, we would have got a lot more of that foundational building blocks of what the Federation is, how it came to be, the negotiating with bringing in new races, new worlds into the Federation, United Federation of Planets. So I was there for it. Now I do have one criticism about Enterprise, and I think spending a whole season on the Xindi was a mistake. I understand what happened, so it's not that I don't understand it. I just think, and especially the first time through. Now I can get through it now; it's not a big deal. But when I was watching it for the first time, I'm like, all right, with this storyline, when is this going to end? Because I get that they're the major threat and they're going to blow up the planet and all this stuff, but do we have to spend an entire season trying to find these Xindi? But I tempered that on rewatches. Maybe they did. Maybe they did we needed to go through that basically whole season progression to get the outcome that we got. So that's my one kind of nitpick on Enterprise. I mean, there's plenty of nitpicks, but that's the major one.
Well, and I think with the Xindi story arc and the serialized storytelling of that, I think that was one of the things that threw me off the first time I watched it, because I was like, what is this? What is this expanse? This didn't exist. What are you talking about? This is not part of the, and then you have a part of the galaxy that we know in Star Trek, but you have to watch that entire story. And this echoes a lot of the conversations that we have sometimes. You have to watch the entire story to see the context of what the story is that they're trying to tell. But yeah, I do. At the time, upon first viewing, I thought that it was a bit excessive.
Yeah, because up until Enterprise, we didn't get that kind of serialized storytelling in Star Wars. We got small
Star Trek. Star Trek.
My mistake. I'm publicly flogged and humiliated. Thank you.
I did it.
Yes. But up until that time, we didn't get long story arcs. Maybe a couple of episodes. But there were always there was threads, obviously, right?
Yes.
Deep Space Nine did threads that lasted arcs that lasted longer, but so we got that, and that kind of threw me off too. Anyway, so Enterprise is my number 3.
All right. Well, that takes us to my number 2, and 200 Quatlus. Is your number 2 Deep Space Nine?
It is.
So we're in agreement again. Yeah. Everyone's happy.
Yeah.
I loved Deep Space Nine because of the ensemble characters, taking the fish out of water of Starfleet officers, inhabiting a Cardassian space station, negotiating with the Bajorans, being the hub of the Alpha Quadrant because of the wormhole. Absolutely. And everyone from Quark to the Grand Nagus, the inclusion of Admiral Ross during the Dominion War, Wayoon, Garrick, Gul Dukat, Damar. Even you have a sidekick henchman who has an incredible story arc. The richness of the ensemble cast,
and an incredible, insatiable appetite for Kanar.
Absolutely, who doesn't?
Mm-hmm.
And just everything about it, the fun and the play. And I found, and this will speak to my number one, but I found that when Deep Space Nine went and had a fun episode, those are probably my favorite fun episodes, like the Take Me Out to the Holodeck or Trials and Tribulations.
Awesome.
There are just fun episodes. And again,
forgive me, Scotty.
Please
forgive me for not knowing the name. I'm trying to pull the name and I just can't. When Cisco is the writer in the 50 sci-fi,
Far Beyond the Stars.
Yes, Far Beyond the Stars.
Probably one of the best episodes.
It's one of the best episodes, not only of that series, but of all the series.
Yes.
Not only, but that's another kind of fun episode where they pull it. It's kind of pulled out of time, and I love that episode.
Oh, and it's incredible. And just it being incorporated into the battle between the prophets and the Pa Wraiths.
Right.
I sometimes just randomly throw out Benjamin Sisko explaining linear time. I find that clip on YouTube and I send it to someone just when I'm in times of trouble. And I just think, no, we explore our lives one moment to the next. And that is such a comforting and amazing thought that blew my mind as a kid, and just everything about that show. And when I first watched it, I was so happy with the war storyline because I wanted to see full out Federation starship battles. I know that there's been some backlash to that, and in terms of Star Trek not being a war show, but it is something that speaks to why I wanted the following Star Trek shows to move into the future as opposed to looking to the past, because I wanted to see the ramifications and fallout of the Dominion War in the Alpha and Gamma quadrants, how far things had expanded at that point, and what the opinion of the Federation, Starfleet in particular, what was the power dynamic, the political impact of that conflict. And so that was one of the missed opportunities, and I was hoping for that to be explored eventually. And hopefully we still can see that if people decide that that's the way that they want to go.
Yeah, I don't hold our breath the way things are going now, but
perhaps
things can change.
And be careful what you wish for, because when we take a look at what happens on Picard, no, apparently the Dominion War left ripples, and nobody likes nobody no more. Right.
Yeah, let's not talk about Picard. So Deep Space Nine is my second two. Upon rewatches, it's just sharp. It's sharp storytelling. The characters are great. I mean, even the ancillary characters are amazing. So for everything that you just said and more, that's my number two as well. So let's get to our number one.
Absolutely. My number one is Star Trek, the Enterprise, NCC 1701. No bloody A, B, C, D, or E. Yeah. Absolutely. Again, I was raised on Star Trek. I found it to be an incredible cast of characters, the interactions between Kirk, Spock, and McCoy, the friendship, the loyalty, the honor, the duty, the adventure of exploration, boldly going where no man has gone before. And not only that, but just an incredible anthology show of week to week, different problem, different planet, different theme. Sometimes we're talking about loss and the responsibility to maintain the good of the many instead of the good of the one in regards to City on the Edge of Forever. I think one of the most terrifying things that I ever saw on television at the time was when Gary Mitchell gets the zapped, and he has the silver eyes and the echoing, booming voice of being a god. And it's just like, heebie-jeebies, so many people dying, aliens everywhere, the introduction of so many things that have been staples to Star Trek ever since, obviously.
Sure.
But that is the blueprint, the ground floor, the foundation, the absolute beginning of where my love for science fiction really began. Before Star Wars, there was Star Trek for me.
Yeah, awesome. And my number one, obviously, is The Next Generation. For all the reasons that we've covered so far today. It was my introduction, not introduction, but it was the thing that pulled me into actually being a Star Trek fan, into the fandom. I love all the characters. I love the stories. We'll get to this on another episode when we count down the movies. But I really do love the storytelling in this show. The moral quandaries they tackle in a way that doesn't beat it over your head. There too many to name right now, but there's such great episodes. I really love the Ro character. Sometimes I'll do a Ro marathon where I just pick out the Ro Lauren episodes and watch them back to back. So yeah, the evolution of the characters, the arcs, the stories, the moral quandaries, all of it. So that remains still to this day my favorite Star Trek show.
Well, one of my favorite Star Trek shows is the live show that we do on Monday nights.
Mine
it's
too.
called Set to Stun, and it's me, Chandra, and Steve in Engineering with the News. If you guys want to come and check that out, that would be fabu. We're on at 6:30 Pacific and 9:30 Eastern. And so, yeah, if you
Every
want to
Monday
hear
night.
us every Monday night, and if you want to hear us talk about Star Trek, and you should come join us.
So, hey, PGSers, we want to hear from you in the comments below. Please list your favorite classic Star Trek television series, 5 to 1. We're looking forward to seeing those. And I think that'll do it for us, Scotty. So for Scotty R37, I'm Steve Foley. Have a great day, everybody.
See you guys.